Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be talking to you about sentence writing. We use a program at school called Colourful Semantics, and I'm going to explain how we teach sentence writing using this program. The first thing children need to understand before writing a sentence is what a sentence is. So children normally speak in just a steady flow of consciousness, and we need to break down what they're saying into individual sentences. Before we talk about using a capital letter and using a full stop, they need to actually know what the sentence is. They know where to put their capital letter and where to put the rest of their punctuation. So what I do with the kids in class is I have them all go to sleep, and they all pretend to go to sleep, and then I call them and I go bring bring, and they wake up and they say hello, and then I say dog, and they say, well, what about the dog? And then we hang up and I say, was that a complete message? That was not a complete message. If someone called you in the middle of the night and said dog, you would be wondering, well, what about the dog? What happened to the dog? So then put down the phone and they all go to sleep. Go back to sleep. I go to sleep. Bring bring. Hello. Barking. And they look around, they look confused. They've been woken up in the middle of the night and they've been told barking. That's not a complete message. So we say, that's not a sentence. And then we try again. And we say, go back to sleep. Bring, bring. Hello. The dog is barking. Ah, that's a complete message. I understand the person is trying to convey the message that there is a dog and the dog is barking. So if we understand that if someone wakes you up in the middle of the night and they said the dog or mummy or anything like that, it's not a complete message and they need to have more information. So that brings us on to the first bit of Colourful Semantics, which is a sentence needs a subject and a verb for it to be a complete message. And the way we teach that is by having an orange placard that says who, and we use the Makaton signs to help. Who, and we want to know who is the sentence about? Who are we talking about? Now that can be the subject, of course, that can be the doctor, it can be the dog, it can be the spider, it can be the elephant. So that's the subject of your sentence when we talk about who. And then we've got a yellow placard, and that one is what doing. And again, we use the Makaton signs to help. So we have what doing. Oh, you can't see. What doing. So we have who is the sentence about, and we have what doing. What is happening? What is happening to the subject? So we might have a very simple sentence like the boy, who, the boy, is playing. That's what he's doing. And that is a sentence. So we could start with a capital letter, capital T, the boy is playing, full stop. That is a complete message. Now, once we have our basic sentence, we can then add more information. You don't have to add more information, but you can. So all you need is your subject and your verb, but often sentences have a bit more than that. So you have who, what doing, and then you have what. So that's your object. So you might say, the boy, that's who, is throwing the ball. That's what he's throwing. What is he throwing? He's throwing the ball. You don't have to have a ball in your sentence, so that's just adding a bit more information. The boy is throwing the ball. And that's a complete message. We can add a full stop. Then for a bit more of a challenge, or when the children are beginning to master simple sentences, we can begin to add even more information. So we can add the where, and we do our hands like this, where. So we have who is the boy, what doing, he is throwing, what, the ball, where, in the park. The boy is throwing the ball in the park. You can add more information by saying when. The boy is throwing the ball in the park on Saturday. And then when the children get a little bit older, they start to vary their sentences by changing the order. They begin to use fronted adverbials where they give you the when at the beginning of the sentence. So they might say, last Saturday, the boy was throwing the ball in the park. Or on Sundays, the boy goes swimming at the pool. And so we then start to use the when at the beginning, and then that's followed by a comma. You don't need to worry about that now, but that is more of a challenge if you want to vary your sentences. Now, when we're teaching sentences, we are not so worried about the spellings. If we're doing a lesson on spellings, then we're learning to spell tricky words, then we're focused on spelling the words correctly. When we're talking about how to write a sentence and writing a complete sentence, then we're not so worried about spelling. So we can offer the spellings to the children. So we have cards like the ones you see on the screen, where we have the baby, the girl, the pirate. You've got the what doing, is running, is singing, is swimming. You've got the where, at the castle at home. You've got the when on Saturday, and then the children can put those sentences together and they know that they are writing a complete sentence. Again, if this is too complicated, some children are just working at the sentence level of subject and verb. The boy is running. And we leave it at that. A great way to practice at home is to discuss your reading book with your child. So they might be reading a story about a princess, and so you can ask the question, what is the princess doing? And you can see if they can answer you in a full sentence. You can encourage them to say the whole sentence. So the princess is fighting off bad guys. And so they start to understand that that is a sentence. They start to use full sentences at home. In order for the children to be able to write, they need to be able to say it. So we call this talk for writing, that we use lots of talk, lots of opportunities to talk about what you're going to write before you write it down. It's not all about putting pen to paper. Then in school, we have a little self-marking technique. And so if you look at the picture here, on the right-hand side, there are these little circles, and in the top one, you've got a capital A and a lowercase a. So the children learn that that means, have you checked for your capital letters? And that doesn't just mean at the beginning of the sentence, it also means, have they stuck a stray capital letter in the middle of a word? So have they got a capital E in the word the? So they can check for their capital letters and lowercases. Then the next one is a full stop. So checking, have you finished your sentence with a full stop? And the last one there is finger spaces. So checking, have they used finger spaces? So that they can refer to these throughout the lesson. They're up on the board. I put them up on the smart board as well, so they can have a go at marking their own work. At the bottom, you see a little picture of the telephone, which is like the telephone at the beginning of this presentation, which is just checking, is it a full message? Is the message complete? Have I just written the dog and put a full stop in? Oh, if someone called me in the middle of the night, the dog, that's not a complete message, so they can check. Does my sentence make sense? And they can read back through their sentence, which is one of the year one objectives, to read what you've written and check it makes sense. And now I wanted to give you a quick note on handwriting. Handwriting goes hand in hand with the actual writing, of course, because the more fluid and confident your child is with writing, the more able they are to write down their ideas. Writing is one of the hardest skills for children to master because it requires so many different areas. You need to know your phonic sounds so you know which sound you want to write down. You need to be able to form the letter correctly. You need to be able to read back what you've written. And it is one of the most difficult skills that a year one child will learn. So a way that you can support this at home is by giving your child an opportunity to write at home. I don't mean writing a paragraph or even a sentence. It could be just practicing forming letters. Because the more confident your child is forming the letters correctly, the more quickly they'll be able to write down their ideas and the less frustrated they'll become. So I've got a little note, I've got a little video that I've made on the handwriting that we're practicing at the moment. So I'll stick that on at the end. So I've just drawn some lines on a notebook at home to show you how we practice handwriting. I normally have the top line and the bottom line, and then I've been drawing a dotted line halfway up so you know how tall the small letters should be. So we've got the tall letters that should go from the bottom to the top, and the small letters that should go just halfway up the line. So we say tall letters tall and small letters small. These are letters that are in the K family, the curly K family, because they start by making the letter C. Now some children make the letter C starting at the bottom, and that's what we're trying to correct. To make the letter C, we've got to start at the top, otherwise we can't make all the other letters in the family. Like the letter A, it's made of a curly K, and then it keeps on going around to make the A. Or the letter G, you start by making a C, and then you go back to where you started, and then you do your descender, and you see the big belly of the G should be resting on the line. For the letter D, you also start by making the letter C, but this time you go all the way up to the top because it's a tall letter, and then all the way back down and it has a tail. And we talk about how dogs have tails, and so the letter D, or a D, has a little tail. Now some people have been making a C starting at the bottom, and when they do that, it makes it difficult to make the letter A. That's not right. So we have to make sure that we are starting at the top to make the letter C. Some people make Ds like this, where they're starting at the top, but then the problem is that when they're going to be doing joined up handwriting, they can't connect the letter D if they've started at the top. So that's why we practice starting where you would start the letter C.